So Tabajara Belo is from Minas Gerais, and he got his master's degree at University of Arizona a few years back, and now he's working his PhD in Florida. His PhD degree is in composition, so he has this side of performer, but also as a composer and arranger. So it's gonna be really exciting to learn a little bit about what he's doing and his career. So let's check here and see if he's there. Taba, are you there with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey man, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, I'm glad you invited me. I think this is, this project you're doing is really great. You know, we have been all friends, musicians, trying to find our way through the pandemic, and most of us dealing a lot with like technology issues, trying to get the best sound and the best transmission and things like that. And we have been talking a lot, actually, me and you, about how so you're getting a lot of really nice output from this research, that and I've been also doing many different things regarding.
That's great. And I think, you already brought like a first topic maybe for us to talk a little bit about. This whole thing about, if the pandemic going on, like we are trying to find new ways to get our music to people. And I have the people who are watching, they probably know that I do that every Thursday, bring different guests, and it's been like a lot of fun. But I know that you also are doing a lot of different things. You very recently played in a festival, a guitar festival online. Can you tell us a little bit about this project you just did?
Yeah, this is really exciting. It's me, André Siqueira, and Carlos Walter, other guitarists and friends from Brazil. We put out this like the first Brazilian guitar festival, online. So it's kind of a landmark, So and then we we invited a couple other friends, not many at this very first edition of the festival. And we did the cycle like 1 week meeting of like half-hour concerts, like 2 concerts each night, and like a chat with the musicians. And it was really, really interesting, the way, the return from the audience and like the guitar community, not only in Brazil, but also friends from the US and also other countries. So it was just, we finished that last week, and it's kind of there's like a follow up, because we're doing like clinics for people that that bought like 2 or more tickets, and I'm also teaching. I'm teaching improvisation and there's like some arrangement clinics and entrepreneurship and things like that. And it's called Violões em Rede Festival. I think the translation for that, it would be like, like guitars connected through the internet, something like that.
That's
so
great.
it's a cool thing, yeah.
No, that's great. I saw your concert and it was really great. Just the quality of sound, all the way through. Like you guys, you sounded great, of course, but the technology part, you guys were able to deliver a really good product for everybody. So that was great. And for the friends from Brazil, o Taba tocou nesse esse festival online que se chama Violões em Rede. Então, e teve um alcance bem bacana com vários violonistas brasileiros. Are you gonna have this festival again in the future? That's a plan of doing?
Yeah, it's an online festival. It's in a certain way it's more complicated than it seems at first, But in the other hand, it's easier to do that more often than like a regular event that you have to hire theaters and things like that. So we're looking forward to to keep doing that maybe twice every semester or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the way. Sometimes we have we have many roles in the musical life. We go through. So as a producer, uh, when we conceive an event like that, you have to keep doing. Then you can like bring more sponsors, and then having a better infrastructure and pay people better, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we're doing one more Violões em Rede festival this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great, great. So, guys, make sure you guys follow Tabajara on the social media so you guys know when the next festival is. It's easy to find. I figured that find you on Facebook pretty easy. You have a very distinct name, which is good. You type Paulo Oliveira on Facebook, there are a bunch of them. But if you type, Tabajara Belo and Instagram. So guys, make sure you guys follow Tabajara to know about his next projects. Taba, do you want to play something with us for us?
Sure, yeah. I hope is the sound coming good there?
Yes, it's arriving pretty well here. So
yeah, good. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna play. I have been doing kind of three different branches on my work in the classical guitar, or the nylon guitar. That I've been composing a lot. Like my PhD is based on my studies for multi-textural improvisation, and I also play some kind of originals that are like kind of in kind of like a song format, and I do a lot of arrangements for Brazilian folk themes and songs. So I'm gonna do here now a mix of a song that you might know. It's Tristezas do Jeca.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really cool thing from like this the countryside of Brazil, because as a musician colleague, that sometimes people know a lot about Rio de Janeiro stuff and Bahia stuff. So it's samba, bossa, but Brazil, as the U.S. is really huge. So it's a really like astonishing variety of rhythmic figures and genres. So one of my goals is to promote, some colors, some cultural manifestations that maybe are not so popular, but they're as rich as bossa and samba. So I'm gonna mix here a little bit of that. It's from like the countryside of Brazil with a kind of fancy reharmonized arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna mix that with Villa Lobos. That it's a classical composer, maybe like the most famous one in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And play this theme is a trenzinho do caipira. That is called like
E só para os amigos do Brasil, então o Taba falou aqui um pouco desse repertório. Vai tocar Tristeza do Jeca, que pra gente do Brasil é um repertório mais conhecido, mas aqui nos Estados Unidos tem essa coisa da bossa nova, da música do Rio de Janeiro, da Bahia, que é o que chega aqui, né? E o trabalho do Taba é trazer um pouco dessa música que não tem tanta força internacional, apesar de ser uma coisa linda, né? E ele harmonizou e twisted, e ele vai mostrar aí o arranjo dele, que já também emenda aí no Villa Lobos. Então tá ótimo.
Isso aí.
beautiful. Oh, that was beautiful, man. That's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just love, the lushness of the harmony and just your approach to the guitar. When I first heard your stuff, I quickly realized that we had a lot of things in common, like as far as the interest, like the thing about like the sound of the guitar is such an important part. Maybe, we have this classical background that we use, but we are also very interested in harmony and understanding, how what are ways that we can express ourselves through harmony, through counterpoint. And I see all that in your playing, and your repertoire too. Everything is it's really great. I'm pretty sure everyone enjoyed it. It was great.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's nice. You mentioned that in your intro. Like these affinities. These things in common that we have, and to a certain extent, most Brazilian guitar players have that thing, like the guitar, and here too. It's we have like sometimes we have the two poles, the classical and jazzy. But if when you get to know people, all of them, they went through like at least part of their path was dedicated to the electric guitar, either distorted rock and roll or jazzy. And sometimes if you take like the whole career, there are certain moments that we have to focus more on one topic, or like there were moments that I actually stopped playing, like mandolin, for example. I play mandolin too, but then I got back, like so. Most recently, when I came to Florida, my PhD in composition, because when I studied in Arizona many years ago, I did this master's in guitar performance, and it was mostly classical oriented. And when I got here, the composition kind of took me away for a little bit from the instrument, just because of time, to take care of all the reading and all this stuff, which was good. A lot of anxiety because I'm used to play consistently. I just like to do. I need to do it, and I love to do it. It's not something that when you, for some people, it might happen, but not with me. I just got older, and I kept this kind of, this childish, blaze, and flame, whatever. This thing that I feel like playing. And here my PhD is in composition, but also in jazz studies. So I had to dedicate like formally to the electric guitar and improvisational studies. So it's really nice, because I write for like chamber music, some like atonal music, but I also write like jazz themes, and my connection with my committee and my professors is really positive. It's really open, and
it's really great that you
it's really
found a
nice.
place
Yeah.
where you can combine those two things. And I guess that's another thing we share in common, because two things that you said that I agree completely. The thing about doing like the classical side and the jazz thing, how to balance those things. I get asked that all the time, and I bet people ask you that too. And I mean, at some extent, we always work on both, but there are periods of the life that you just have to choose. In my case, just comparing to what you're saying, I came to the US for the master's in classical guitar. So for that first year, my master's, I didn't touch an electric guitar almost. I was just playing classical guitar like crazy, doing competitions. And then after I finished the master's degree, it was kind of interesting because I went from practicing like 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day. I was so tired of classical guitar. I couldn't handle it. I got,
It happens. Yeah.
it happened, and was kind of sad actually, because I didn't want to play. So then I started the master's in jazz studies, and I always played jazz my whole life. So for that 1 year, I only played the electric guitar. I didn't cut my nails, but I almost did. And kind of the same thing. And then after that, for my doctorate, I did something similar to what you're doing. Doctorate in classical guitar, but with the jazz as being part of it. So it's great. It's I think.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Sometimes we às vezes é legal traduzir esse pedacinho também, né, Paulo?
Quer traduzir? Ou quer que eu
A
traduza?
gente já foi muito. Não, você é o anfitrião, né?
Tá, então tá. Não, a gente falou um pouco aqui, pessoal, eu e o Taba, dessas influências que nós dois temos, a parte do violão, da guitarra e do equilíbrio de estudo, né? E nós dois concordamos que, assim, tem etapas da vida que você tem que priorizar um ou priorizar o outro. Isso faz parte, né, da jornada. E no doutorado do Taba, ele está fazendo em composição, mas também tem uma parte de jazz studies. Ele compõe vários estilos, música contemporânea, música tonal, música para violão, para diferentes instrumentações. E a gente também compartilha isso. No meu doutorado, eu também tive essa experiência combinada aí.
Yeah, and even within the variety, of genres and instruments, we also we keep having to make choices. Sometimes we have to deny things, not because we don't like them, but just because it's we gotta about time, Like Daniel Murray is this, our friend from Brazil, great player. Murray, but he's Brazilian. He said in the Violões em Rede Festival last week, we had this conversation, and he mentioned that like life is too short to do everything we like. It's kind of it sounds obvious at first, but it's interesting, because if we are curious about things, and we want like novelty and discover things, it's hard, and sometimes you gotta, like, for example, I love Baroque music, and I love like lute repertoire. You had guests from Baroque last week, right?
Last week, yes, exactly.
And I love it, and I always used to play. I play like many of the Bach suites that we have, guitar transcriptions, the Frank Kunz transcriptions, and then I still practice that at home. But like the last 5-10 years, I decided that I wouldn't do that professionally anymore. I wouldn't do that, perform that on stage, because otherwise I wouldn't have time to go deeper on, for example, this kind of arrangement that I play. I have to create, and sometimes it sounds easy, but it's not. I have to practice my own stuff too. So I had to kind of give up and kind of like 100% of the stuff I play, it's either my arrangements or my compositions right now. It's been like that, and it's cool, because it's also a way of positioning yourself in the market, as like Roland Dian, for example, that I know you also like him, because it was really a great character in the guitar world, and he was an inspiration. I knew his stuff here in the U.S. In like 1999, like the previous century that I was here in Arizona, and then a lot of American guys, they were playing like the Libra Sonatine, and then I got to know him, and like, his concerts, he just plays his stuff and his arrangements, and I said, okay, though, that's possible, it's an interesting kind of career, way to choose things.
Só para fazer um resumo, então, dessa fala do Taba aí, de novo, essa coisa de fazer as escolhas no repertório, né? Dentro do próprio violão, às vezes temos que fazer escolhas, e mais uma vez vou concordar com ele aí, ele estava dizendo que ele gosta muito de música barroca, e mesmo ele tendo essa... ele teve que fazer a escolha de focar nos arranjos, focar em outra parte aí do trabalho dele. Então, e no meu caso também acontece a mesma coisa. de ter que fazer as escolhas. O repertório do Segovia é uma coisa que eu toquei muito, que eu adorava e que hoje em dia também já não sobra tempo. It's kind of the same thing, you know. I love, like, I used to play a lot of Ponce and Toroba, and I just loved that, but it was a period of time of my life. And now, the time, I've been playing a lot of electric guitar lately, and the time when I go to the classical guitar mostly is for arrangements, or composers like Roland Young, Ralph Towner, composers that have this kind of a combination, and I incorporate a lot of improvisation too on the classical guitar. So it's kind of go along the same lines. Since I mentioned improvisation, I want to talk about your studies of that relate improvisation. That's part of your research at the University of Florida. Maybe it would be maybe if you can just briefly talk a little bit about it, and then maybe play one of them, if you'd like.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know what's the time limit for us, but maybe I play some fragments.
Yeah, fragment.
Yeah, what I started doing as a professor at the Federal University of Ouro Preto. I'm a faculty member there in Brazil, in Minas Gerais. And I had like many young students that they wanted to improvise, and and I wanted them like basically two things, and also they had that expectation to expand the repertoire of scales, you know, so not having them restricted to the pentatonic that usually it's what people learn first, and sometimes they get stuck on it. So expand, you know, make having them playing, you know, playing diminished scales and playing melodic scales, and also being able to do something that not having this the duality of having like block harmony, you know, and scales, like closed strings scales, as we do in the electric guitar most of the time. So I started to do this thing of trying to combine like the richness of the colors of the classical guitar, you know. So like incorporating that to some like either like patterns or like some kind of exercises that could enable students to develop ideas that could have more basically more variety of textures on the guitar. So I started doing like stuff like for example counterpoint, you know. So what I'm doing here is like we do with cadences, you know, but instead of have the shapes of four voices like that it's also great and it's necessary, useful. Having that with counterpoint, with campanelas, you know. So I started doing that and writing the studies. So they're called Studies for Multi-Textural Improvisation. Right now I have 10 movements. And maybe it's done. Maybe it's gonna be 10. Maybe it's gonna be more. And what is cool, just trying to be brief. It's hard because it's.
Let me translate, because you already said some great things. I'm gonna translate that and then you can come with the next part. Então, galera, para vocês que quiserem conhecer um pouco mais os estudos de improvisação multitextural, o Taba começou isso quando ele estava dando aula na universidade. Tinha alunos de violão clássico que estavam interessados em desenvolver esse lado da improvisação. E aí tem vários elementos aí que ele falou, que ele incorpora. Então, para os guitarristas, violonistas aí, vale a pena dar uma olhada. Tem gravação no YouTube. You guys can find those on YouTube, on his channel. Very easy to find. Just type his name there, you find it.
And also the scores are available on they're free on my website. And
okay, so students, guitar students, you guys should check it out.
I'm gonna type here on the chat.
Mm.
I did that once, but I can do that once more. So the cool thing about the studies is that I started doing that at first, each movement based upon one specific scale or mode, you know. So it's strict in that sense. So what I did, I picked, for example, like an F diminished scale, for example, you know, like, you know, just those 8 pitches, you know, F, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D, E, you know. And then I started to organize a whole movement just using these frequencies, these pitches, you know. So and I organized that in campanelas, for example, things like that, you know. And then I started to harmonize the scale, you know, because it's like, for example, you know. So I started doing things like that. The idea is texture, you know. So I was trying to explore like the all the harmonics that I'm gonna play a little bit of this movement. It's study number 2.
Great. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
it sounds kind of crazy, but it has that educational purpose. The cool thing about that is that all the notes I played, they were strictly F, G, G sharp, you know,
Yeah.
and I explored different kinds of textures with the open strings. So that's the main idea of this collection.
That's great,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Thank you, thank you. Pra galera do Brasil, essa é uma peça que é baseada na escala diminuta, que é uma escala simétrica que vai de tom inteiro e meio tom. Baseado nessas notas aí, o Taba organizou texturas, campanelas, harmonizações, usando
Nesse caso
sempre...
aqui, tudo Fá diminuta, né? Essa aqui, esse movimento inteiro em Fá diminuta. Né?
E sempre usando o idiomatismo do violão, o que é super bacana, né? Muito legal mesmo. São 10, they are 10, how many studies?
Yeah, 10 movements.
And how are they based on different scales, different pitch collections? How are they organized?
Yeah, each like from movement 1 to 7, they are like, each movement is one scale. So I have like one for D melodic minor, that it's like, you know, so it's... idea, trying to explore counterpoint, accompanied melody. And then from movements 8 to 10, I start like, actually 7 to 10, I start like mixing, like different scales, like switching from one mode to the next one in different, all kinds of schemes, like third shifts, things like that.
We have a question here, and I'm gonna let you answer this about campanelas. They want to understand.
Good.
Fernando, if you can show us. Pessoal, o Taba vai explicar pra gente o que é uma campanela no violão.
Yeah, I love to explain about campanelas. It's just because it's a thing that people, if you don't, even if you're a musician, sometimes if you don't play like string instruments, you don't know it. Campanella, it's in Italian, it's like a little ring, a little bell. Sorry, yeah, so like campana. Yeah, campanella is a little bell. So the idea of campanella is that you play the melodic fragments or even chords too, in a way that you have minor seconds and major seconds. They keep ringing together. So minor second is like the half step, and major second is the whole step. So if I play a scale without campanella, for example, like we'll play with the electric most of the time, we would do something like that. Like all closed strings. If I play with the campanella, I mix open strings with closed strings, and I keep them ringing, so that it's gonna sound the same. I'm gonna play again in non-campanella style, and then with campanella.
That is this harp-like kind of flavor, right?
Yeah, harp. So you have because you have the C, D, it keeps ringing, and then the D sounds goes into the E. You kind of, most of the time you listen to two notes at the same time. So it's kind of it raises the resonance of the instrument. So sometimes we use that on purpose, to have more volume.
Yeah, campanelas are interesting because it has a part of the nature of the campanella is harmonic, because the notes sound at the same time, but at the same time it has a melodic nature too, where each note of the melody bleeds on the next one. It's always hard to define that line between what's harmony, what's melody on a campanella, because you kind of get both, right? Yeah, that was a very good question, Fernando. That's great. If you guys have more questions for Taba or for myself, feel free to write on the chat. And the sound is so good here. Maybe we'd love to hear you play something else, if you feel like playing, of course.
Sure.
And in the meantime, guys, you can write on the chat if you have a question. We have a few guitarists here. Robbie Chen, guitarist from Singapore. We have someone from Singapore, Taba, watching us today.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hi, Chen.
Yeah, and Robbie, if you have a question here. Actually, Robbie studied at the University of Arizona in Arizona State. From Kunz.
Oh, Kunz. Yeah, sure. Great friend, Kunz. Yeah, in Phoenix, right?
Yeah, it's in Phoenix. Yeah, that's correct. So, guys, if you have more questions, feel free to ask. And Taba, what are you gonna play for us?
Yeah, I think. I hope I remember that. I'm gonna play a composition that I wrote for. I mentioned Roland Dian at the beginning, and when he passed away, I wrote this little piece that it's called Ijexá Acalanto. Dian had like this really profound connection with Brazil, with Bahia, Salvador. I'm not sure if he lived there or whatever, or if he had like friends or something like that. So Ijexá is this rhythm from Bahia that if people that know capoeira are certainly familiar with that. Is the like the berimbau. So Ijexá is this kind of rhythmic cell, and Acalanto is kind of like a lullaby. So I wrote this piece that has those two different moods, you know, like the rhythmic drive and also this kind of more ad lib flavor. And I wrote that for Rolandian. So Ijexá Acalanto.
Man, that's great. Thank you. That was even, you know, we are going through like DPA microphone, Zoom, OBS, YouTube, but even then you can the sound, I don't know how it's arriving for everybody else at home, but here the sound's warm. It's great. It sounds pretty good. Considering the limitations of technology. I think it sounds great. And obviously your tone, you know, how careful you are with your touch and the angle of attack and the whole, you know, I really
Yeah.
enjoy that about your music. You know?
It's interesting that you're mentioning that because even with the you know this the tragedy that the COVID-19 remains being, you know, for most of, you know, the people, um, there's a particular aspect for the guitar players, you know, is that usually guitar players, they like to play at home a lot. You know,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we have a certain degree of frustration when we go on stage, and the amplification systems, they kind of change too much, you know, what we are used to listen in a daily basis, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the pandemic brought this kind of cool thing that we're playing from home, you know. So and it's interesting in that sense, you know. So the challenge is to how to get that sound that we get home, you know, make that sound travel and arrive at the listener, and you know, and the viewer, you know, with a certain satisfactory fidelity, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
A
But
fair
you know,
representation of what we do, right? That's why, and
yeah,
that, and we talked about that, how it's a challenge sometimes, certain lives. I mean, as musicians, we are obviously always happy to play our music and talk about music, but we want at least some degree of quality on the sound, and that's something that I'm learning, and you are learning. Like, we're working together to, you know, to find the best setup possible. It's definitely a work in progress, you know, at least for me here with all my gear that I'm using, just trying to make sure we can deliver the best sound possible. But that's really great.
yeah, and it's nice. Like there's like a guy, Vitor Gonçalves.
Yeah.
He says that tá chegando sonzão aqui. He says
Oh,
he's
ótimo.
saying that it's good.
Vitor
One of the things
Gonçalves, Vitor Gonçalves, I remember him when I played in Brazil. He studies with Paulo Porto Alegre.
wow,
I
yeah,
gave a master class there. Played a concert actually, and Victor was there.
yeah.
Uh,
Please, Vitor, say hi. Fala com o Paulo, dá um abraço no Paulo.
Victor.
Admirador do trabalho dele.
Isso,
Yeah,
O
he's
Paulo.
asking which guitar is this.
Uhum.
Can I
Yes,
answer, Paulo?
please. Pode
So
responder em português para ele?
yeah,
Uhum.
yeah. This is a short. We can do both. Yeah, this is a Paulino Bernabe guitar. Esse é um Paulino Bernabe, Vitor, de 1990,
Uhum.
né? O Bernabe é engraçado. Esse é um Bernabe. This is a spruce top, right? É de pinho, né? Tampo de pinho. Então é interessante porque ele tem uma coisa brilhante, né? It's got this brightness, you know, but it's got the warmth too. Mas é veludado ao mesmo tempo. Você tem que domar ele bem. You gotta kind of handle this kind of contrast.
Aham.
But it's like a high volume. É um violão que soa muito, né?
Yeah.
Um violão bem poderoso. Eu toquei um concerto com orquestra aqui, que era aquele concerto do Joaquim Rodrigo, concerto andaluz, e são 4 violões. E até no próprio ensaio, eu era o violão 1, né, o mais agudo, que escala rápido. Para poder eu me impor, eu precisava de um violão de mais volume. E eu peguei emprestado esse violão e ele funciona muito bem. Aqui os agudos dele, you know. So I was playing this concert, rehearsing the Joaquin Rodrigo Concerto Andaluz, and I was playing first guitar, you know, that I had to be really powerful. And I borrowed the guitar from a friend, Jason, a great guitar player. And he was trying to sell the guitar, and he was really wise, because then I kind of, instruments sometimes we get attached to it, you know. And so então eu me apeguei ao violão, comecei a ensaiar, eu falei, pô, esse violão é massa.
Uhum.
E apesar de ser bem caro, eu arrumei um jeito e adquiri. And then I end up buying the guitar, you know, like 1 year and a half ago, something like that.
Uhum.
But it's nice. It's got some identity with my sound, because you know, some guitars they're mellow and have a lot of sustain, but they don't have like the rhythmic. You know, so I always like this kind of. I always had this Spanish side of the guitars. I had a Ramirez 1972 when I was in Arizona. And then I bought a Virgílio, that is a Brazilian luthier that also get that kind of little flamenco flavor. Now I'm back to Berna, but I still keep my guitars. I use two guitars from Sérgio Barbosa, he's a great Brazilian luthier from São Paulo, but he lives in Minas Gerais. And Virgílio also. So I have like nylon classic. I have 4 guitars, but I also have steel and also that is the electric guitar that I use from Belo Horizonte, from Sanzio Brandão. So I represent the Kian guitars. I have to mention that every interview. Yeah, and I love them. Yeah.
Yeah, quite a lot of a lot of guitars. Hey Taba, there are a couple questions for you here. Let's go back here. Robbie Chen, he's asking here. Hey Taba, thanks so much for sharing your beautiful music. How can classical guitarists start out in improvisation, and how do you think they can incorporate it into their daily studies? O Rob está perguntando aqui sobre improvisação para violonistas clássicos. O Taba vai responder em inglês, depois eu faço um resumo em português.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Chen. I think improvisation is not just only. It doesn't mean only like the moment, like a section of the music that it's being played. It can be that. But it can also be a process of composition, and also a way of practicing. And also it doesn't mean that you have like a song that you have chords and you improvise on top of them, right? We all know that, but it's I like to kind of restate that, to re-emphasize that aspect. All cultures have improvisation. All musical cultures have improvisation as part of the musical expression. And I think for classical musicians, I would say 2 basic things. First of all, it's important to get close to accompaniment in a certain degree, because classical guitar sometimes it's not a style, sometimes classical guitar is just a format, right? It's an instrumental setting. So I like to face it like that. I never saw myself as a popular player. Sometimes I'm playing solo, sometimes I'm playing with the band. So I try not to see classical as a genre, because sometimes what you see in classical guitar performances is arrangements of folk tunes, of folk manifestations that they were played in parties, and a lot of that is we can see. If you see like a Baroque suite, there are dances, So I think there's like sometimes we try to play hard stuff, worried about technique, but if we knew better about how that thing, was raised and developed, the genres, we would be more connected with the music we play. But improvisation, I think a good thing is trying to cover the relation between like tonality, because it's a great deal of improvisation is the tonal aspect. So knowing the cadences, knowing what's the chord related to, if this is 2 or 5, this is 1, and knowing every scale that you can do for it. And like the modal aspect that for some people is more accessible. So it's a long question, a long answer, but I can give you like little tips that if you get in touch with me, I can give you more advice on that. But what I like to do is to take like simple scales, you don't need to start with like diminished and things like that. But if you take like, for example, a C major scale, and besides like doing the basic electric guitar thing, that playing like the modes, playing all the pitches in the whole fretboard, I also like to do combinations freely without rhythm. just trying to play the pitches in a non-harmonic approach, not worried about the names of the chords, just trying to organize the pitches that just like C, D, E, F, G, for example. So a C major exercise could be something like that. I'm not thinking about chords right now, so I'm just thinking about the pitches, and sometimes like counterpoint, contrary motion. See that? So I do. And trying to. So I'm playing just freely here and trying to think about the pitches of the scale and textural variety. And that's a good beginning. And apply to cadences as we do in jazz studies. I do that with cadences, and I pick like a chord, and I take like the 4 notes, like a D minor 7, for example. I just think about D, F, A, C, and I have all sorts of combinations in 2 voices, for example. Instead of just thinking the 4 voices. Also, I do that too, and then I do like Baroque harpsichord players would do, and then I do, okay, G7, so I have a lot of G7s. And then I start combining them and I make voices. I think about the harmony, but I keep on my horizontal feeling, So and then a D minor G7 becomes, So I try to make that sing and with a certain degree of as a Baroque choir, So I do that, and depending on the genre, I start introducing the rhythmic character of that genre. So if it's like a tango, for example, I try to do something of the dun 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 dun, the tresillo. Ta, 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 the 3-3-2, in the groups of 8. So I do something like
That's really cool.
That's a lot. That's really about cool talking stuff. About time. That's why I have to stop playing other stuff, because this requires a lot of. Today I practice like 2 hours just with this cadence, like 2-5-1-4, and then going to the 2-5-1 of the minor, in all the keys. And then in E flat. The inversions, it's Paulo, this is endless.
Yeah, you are getting a lot of compliments here, which is great. And I'm gonna ask you a favor. This is gonna be hard, but if you have to summarize those thoughts in Portuguese in like 1 minute, Would you be able to do that for us?
Sure,
Just
sure, yeah.
because we have a few guitarists from Brazil too. You said a lot
You're
of great
talking
stuff.
About Sean's question?
Yes, just what you just did, but just summarize the way in Portuguese.
Yeah. O Sean perguntou aqui sobre um jeito dos violonistas eruditos estudarem improvisação. Eu primeiro fiz a diferenciação, assim, que eu não gosto muito de pensar em violão erudito e popular. Eu penso o erudito mais como um formato, né? Eu penso assim que o violão solo, por ser solo, ele demanda algumas coisas particulares, né? E aí eu sugeri para ele a coisa do estudo modal, né? Quer dizer, de pegar uma escala, vocês viram fazendo com dó maior aqui, né? Só em dó maior, sem sustenido e bemol. De fazer assim, livremente, ad libitum, ficar brincando com as notas, mas sem ficar preso às formas de guitarrista, tá? Nada contra, eu sou guitarrista também, mas não ficar limitado a elas. Usar corda solta, fazer contrapontos, movimento contrário, que é um negócio massa, né? Pra não ficar restrito a coisa do paralelismo, né? Que de viola caipira, que violão também fica legal, mas que é restritivo. E aí dei esse exemplo de fazer com cadência, né? De pegar 2, 5, 1 e tal, e aí e ter essas coisas dos acordes, assim, vários G7, vários Ré menor, né? Ter isso muito claro, né? Ter os G7 são vários, né? E construir linhas conectando essas vozes todas. E falei como que isso demanda tempo, né? Assim, você faz todos os tons, né? Assim, então você começa. Fiz aqui em Mi bemol e aí tem os de corda solta que são mais fáceis, né? E aí vai.
Bacana, legal. Só vou adicionar aqui meus 2 cents, que eu acho que é um assunto assim fascinante. Eu acho que uma diferença grande que existe com os violonistas clássicos, e é difícil generalizar, mas a compreensão do braço, né? A forma que ser capaz de enxergar os intervalos e enxergar as implicações harmônicas que acontecem no instrumento, né? E esse exercício que você deu de exemplo é exatamente isso. São essas, você conseguir enxergar como as notas se comportam em um contexto específico. E quando a gente estuda violão clássico, a gente está lendo, decodificando as notas e tocando, né? E eu acho que a beleza é fazer tudo, né? É poder decodificar as notas, poder tocar, mas enxergar as relações como improvisador, como acompanhador, né? Então, so just what I just mentioned, just complementing what Taba said, is that one of the biggest difference sometimes is that a jazz guitarist or someone who improvises and plays more popular music tends to be more it's necessary to be more aware of the implications of intervals, understanding the fretboard. Taba was showing the cadences and how those notes are organized on the neck, understanding voice leading, understanding chord scale relationships, rather than just be decoding the score. And I mean, I think decoding the score and playing the music, there is a beauty there too, of course. But one thing that we share here is just the interest in combining both, this understanding of the organization of the notes on the neck, the harmonic implications, improvisation, along with the idea of decodifying a piece of music and be able to play. So I think that's one of the greatest beauties of music, not only for guitar, but for any instrument. And if you go back to music history, the great composers, they were very aware of these relationships. I mean, they were composers after all, so they had to be aware of how the notes, how the inner workings of music. And I think that's a really neat thing.
Paulo, at the very end, these fields of the areas of like composition, improvisation, performance, they're really connected. It's hard to define the boundaries, because even, for example, guitar shapes. Sometimes I'm composing with the instrument, and I don't think about, I just do things like, for example, let's. a tango that I, so I didn't think about this. My hands just, I was warmed up and I did this. It's a, so I composed that playing. And then I felt guilty, and I said, I'm not composing properly because I'm just letting my fingers guide me. But being playing for so many decades as I have been, my fingers, they already think, my Paul Richards, my advisor, he says, he has this term that it's like thoughtful hand. It's really cool. I love the way that he defines that. And then I was talking to Dr. Lee, that is also my professor, and he said, man, don't worry so much because, and then he picked like a lot of Stravinsky fragments, passages, and then he told me, see this here, and he's a pianist, Dr. Lee, and he said a lot of these orchestrations here, I know exactly, not exactly, but I have a rough idea about which sections he was just playing piano, they're like friendly piano shapes.
Yes.
So that he was improvising maybe, and he liked that, and then he orchestrated. So it's not a big deal.
I mean, this is fascinating. This topic, I think it's so cool because you let the idiomatic nature of the instrument help you for your composition.
You let it speak,
And that's the cool thing because a lot of people, they tend to kind of be judgmental, as you said. But I think it's really cool to see that as a resource. For example, I've played like in jazz groups where I would play like a voicing in a certain way on the guitar, and the pianist would look at me like, wow, man, what did you play? And then he would like, man, that's such a cool distribution, like I've never really done it this way, and on guitar it's just like, couple fingers, like a really simple. So, and you can draw from other instruments, and the opposite can happen too, like learn some voices that maybe on guitar might not be as easy, but it's like a piano chord or a voicing that you find on a big band chart. During my master's, I analyzed a lot of big band charts, and I was like learning voicings and drop twos, drop threes, and all different kinds of distributions, and trying to bring them to the guitar. It's really helpful, and sometimes you don't want to limit yourself to your instrument, but you have to open up. And this Stravinsky thing, I've analyzed a fair amount during my doctorate, and I heard the same, like the Petrushka chord. There's a whole deal about how that chord, if it was actually the piano was dictating. We are not gonna get to. We can talk about that later because there it gets a little. But it's really cool. It's really cool to look at how idiomatic things can affect composition. I mean, guys, it's been really great. This is like really exciting. I want to thank Taba again. We've been almost 1 hour and a half here, so we are getting close to the end. If you guys have one last question, your chances now. You can type it there. So I just want to thank everyone who's watching. Vitor, Robbie, Jamie, Robbie, Susie, everyone who's here with us, Danny Swenson, Genilson. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us, sending questions. It was a lot of fun. If you have any final questions here, you can send it. Taba, do you want to maybe play one last song for us?
Can I play one more?
Yeah, please.
I'm here. It's cool. It's fun. But let's play.
Yeah.
I'm going to play a short version because it's a long arrangement of this song. It's called Cruzada. It's from Márcio Borges and Tavinho Moura. It's on my very first record. It's from Minas Gerais, so I love to play this. Just a little ad moment here. My two CDs, Tabajara Belo and Suite Brazil, they're all in all the platforms, Spotify, so if you type Tabajara Belo, you're gonna find a lot of stuff out there,
Mm-hmm. So maybe please. In Portuguese too, so the Brazilians can.
Então, vou tocar o Cruzado do Tavinho Moura e Márcio Borges, né? Minas Gerais, da minha terra, né? Eu sou de Belo Horizonte, que tá no meu primeiro disco, né? E meus 2 discos, Tabajara Belo e Suite Brasil, estão aí todas as plataformas. Também tem muito material meu no YouTube, tá? De vídeos. Sou bem ativo aí nas redes. Quem puder acompanhar, eu ficarei grato. Grande abraço, gente. Então, vamos lá, Cruzada.
Yeah. Nice, nice. That's beautiful, man. I love that song, and I mean the arrangement is,
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
it.
I love that.
That's
I love to
that's
play
really
that.
great. Taba, I have a few people here. They're really enjoying your music. Sam Burns,
Yeah.
really good. Sam is one of my master students here, classical guitarist, great guitarist. Thank you for being with us, Susie. Thank you, Victor. Thank you so much for your support,
Thanks,
Ricardo.
guys.
Ricardo, Vitor. Okay, maybe we can finish here with a good question from Robbie, just to wrap it up. Robbie is asking here, and also Jamie is here too. Jamie, thank you for your support. Uh, Rob is asking, Taba, what ideas inspire you these days? What musical path and projects are you exploring or working towards?
Uh, you know, I since uh, I'm 47 years old, so I have a career going on, that I have to keep up with things that I have already started, and that people expect from me. And at the same time, I'm a student, I'm a PhD student, and I'm a professor in Brazil. So I've been mixing all these interests. So as a student, I have been developing my composer side, trying to incorporate new ideas that I'm not so familiar with. So I have been studying a lot of like 12 tone composition, a lot of different explorations regarding like form and texture, and writing for instrumental settings that I haven't been writing yet. So as a student and also writing my thesis. And as a guitar player, I've been keeping expanding my ideas with the multi-textual improvisation. So I really practice that a lot to get better on it. And I also I love to accompany, songs, Brazilian popular music, and also as a jazz guitarist, I have been practicing a lot too. So I've been combining all of that, and I mean, just to finish in a good way, I think one of the maybe the the secrets, not secrets, but maybe like the best insight that we can have as musicians is always trying to find a way in your like solitaire study, because we spend most of, not only in pandemic times, we spend most of our times by ourselves, is trying to keep the motivation in your practice, so because we're gonna practice until the day we go to heaven, so so it's better having, doing that with joy. So it's impossible to avoid it. So and when I say that, it's like you gotta be creative, so changing the way you do things, changing what you're listening, changing, all kinds of things that might allow you to keep your motivation up. So that's what I think in bad choices I made, I've done in life, that was a good one, a good choice is that I always kept myself alert to being happy with the instruments I play, and always pretty much like changing the way I'm practicing. Maybe I should practice that repertoire. Like right now, for example, I've been working with drum loops. That's one thing that it's for me it's challenging and it's fun. I use like different drum settings, with apps and stuff, and each one of them they make me play in a different way, and I play electric or the acoustic, improvise, trying to establish like a dialogue with that. That's one of little thing that I've been doing, and I play at least like 50 minutes of the day in that mode, and it's interesting.
Great. Very great. Thank you for the answer. Well, guys, again, I mean, I'm gonna say here my last words. I'm gonna thank you everybody again for being with us here. Thank you, Victor, for your support there. We appreciate it very much. And also Ricardo. Ricardo is one of friends that I had from my rock and roll times in Brazil, long time ago. Thank you, Ricardo, for joining us here. Uh, and again, I just one thing that Taba said, and I have been saying that every week, so it's great that he also mentioned that, guys. If you're a music student during this time of pandemic, we have to reinvent ourselves. You have to find a ways to keep yourself motivated, as Taba said in a very very eloquent way. We love music, and we need the music now. I wish I had some ability how or knowing how to make a vaccine, or but that's not me. There is someone else what I can do, what I work on, and Taba and some of you watching us here, it's music. So let's make sure we can do our best, even with all the limitations and all the difficulties we might have. The music is a good company, and I always someone told me that when I was a kid, and I never forgot. Take care of the music, and the music will take care of you. That has been like that in my life. Like, every little step that I achieved, and I think Taba is gonna agree with me. Like, you don't need to keep an eye only like on the money or on the job. Of course, it's important to think about business, to think about all that, your career, but take care of the music, because if you don't have a product, you don't have anything. You have to have a high quality product and invest in yourself, in your music, in your your growth. And if you're outside music, the same thing. Your growth is the most important thing. So again, one more message here. Thank you, Taba. Thank you, Paulo. I cannot stop smiling while watching today's session. Your passions are contagious. Oh, that's great. And Vitor, quando estiver no Brasil, a gente toma um café. Com certeza. E o Taba também já tá dentro aí. That's why I love this, because we get connected with those people that love music like us. Every week here I get excited, man. Like, and even like if one person gets something out of this, I'm very happy. And I always get something out of this, like I actually really enjoyed a lot of the things you said, Taba, and I appreciate you taking your time.
My pleasure.
Taking your time to be here. So I guess that's all. Do you want to say any last words, Taba?
I hope. Thank you very much for. I think this is great. Like this format, this meeting that you've been promoting here. I was supposed to go to Nashville.
Yes.
And then we would meet there, and I would be playing with the jazz ensemble, and so.
Yes, for the Belmont,
beautiful
for the Belmont students that are watching, the guest that we were gonna have was Taba, and because of the pandemic, he was gonna give a master class. He was gonna play with the band, but that will happen. Once things settle, it might take a little bit of time, but
a little flavor of that we got it tonight.
Yeah, we do that here, and hopefully, in the soon future, there once all those things are a little less complicated, we'll be able to get you here, get you to play, and have you teach our students. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for your support here. And next week we have another guest that's gonna be really great, and I'm not gonna tell you yet. So you need to come back. And check out next week's session at 8 p.m. Same channel, Six String Talk. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of the week. Be safe and wear a mask. Estejam seguros e vistam a máscara.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Valeu.
Valeu,
Abração,
Taba.
gente.
Abraço.